This is part 2 of Geezer Butler's Rig. In this episode we take a look at his amplifiers, his strings, his effects pedals and his pickups. Initially, back at the start, Geezer used whatever was around him, recording the album Black Sabbath with a Laney 70-watt tube amplifier and a 412-part cabinet. The cabinet, by the way, only had 3 working speakers, as Geezer couldn't afford to repair the 4th. After some success, he later upgraded the part cab with 2 Laney 4x12s. The same was true for his amplifier and doubled down with 2 100-watt heads. In addition to this equipment around 1974, he added an Alembic rack-mounted preamp for more gain. At the Cow Jam Festival, we now see Geezer on stage with 6 cabinets. And thanks to the tour program from the Sabotage tour, we know these were 12-inch JBL speakers. In addition to these cabs, he now had 3 100-watt Laney heads and 2 Crown power amps powering 2 bass bins on stage. Joining the narrative of part 1, we're going to jump forward to the early 2000s. The Sabbath reunion tours had Geezer endorsed by Ampeg amplifiers. His typical setup was 4 rack-mounted SVT2s. These were hooked up to 4 4x12 cabinets, with an additional 2 215s, as well as 2 8x10s. All 8 cabinets were fitted with electro voice speakers. During the later years of Heaven and Hell, from 2006 to 2010, he dropped the 8x10 cabs in favour of 4 412s and 4 215s. Each were customised with EV speakers and either had a Henry or a cross-cloth grille. On the subject of Ampeg, whilst recording his preceding solo album for GZR and what would eventually become Sabbath's 13, he used an Ampeg CL and a 1969 SVT head. In addition to Ampeg, he also used a Laney 100-watt tube amp. Geezer was invited to play the yearly Dime Bash in the year 2011. This event annually honours murdered Pantera guitarist Dimebag Darrell, where the world of hard rock and metal come together in a communion of thunderous songs and stories to tip its collective glass to one of the true influences in heavy music. Hartke amplifiers provided the backline for this event, and with relative ease, Geezer dialed in a sound reminiscent of early Sabbath. He was officially endorsed by Hartke in 2012. On the 13 album tour, he was using 4 Hartke kilos, each providing up to 500 watts. These heads go on to power a combination of 12 and 15-inch speakers. His usual 4 412s and 4 215s. He used one head to run a 12 and 15-inch speaker. Geezer acquired a bespoke rack-mounted preamp and matching stereo amplifiers made by Ashdown. They dubbed the preamp the Hand of Doom. Its purpose was to be able to separate the highs from the lows and run at full range, suiting his cabinet setup in one single unit. It's also fitted with a tube preamp to give him his old school gritty tone. Now, I've been in contact with Ashdown and they've been kind enough to go through the details of how Geezer's amplifiers were configured during this period. Ashdown took an existing John Entwistle custom preamp, which was based on the Evo 2. They then created additional modifications to the existing crossover. The unit now had 4 outputs instead of its usual 2. That then fed 2 Ashdown stereo amplifiers powering all 4 of his 12-inch cabs. With a second Geezer preamp, this was replicated again in its entirety to power the low-pass signals. Ashdown are releasing a signature Geezer Butler bass head, which will consolidate the setup and downsize it dramatically, housing the preamp and the amplifier together in one unit. This signature model is called the Geezer Butler Head of Doom Bass Amplifier. Rated at 666 watts, hand-built in the UK and designed around Geezer's requirements previously mentioned. The Head of Doom is for bass players who seek classic, driven bass tones with phenomenal power, with a bunch of additional extras. The consumer version will be released in November 2017. For the most part, the only effect you will hear on Geezer's tone is that of an overdriven tube amplifier. He runs his amplifiers extremely hot, to the point where you hear warm analog overdrive. Tube amplifiers like Laney, Ampeg and Hartke are the classic go-tos for this sound. The Hartke Kilo gave Geezer a sound reminiscent of old school Sabbath, with very little in the way of EQing, and a very warm, pleasant overdrive. The only other effect you'll hear during Black Sabbath is that of a wah type sound, and that's on NIB. The original was recorded with Tony's Tycho Brahe wah pedal. These are now collector's items and yours secondhand for around £800. In summer 2017, Geezer released his very own wah pedal in collaboration with Dunlop. It's designed to retain low-end frequencies while allowing an aggressive mid-range cut through the mix. During NIB on the End of the End DVD, you can see on stage a Dunlop Q multi-wah, which the signature was based off. In regards to strings, he's been using heavy gauge, handmade K3 DR strings since the early 2000s, with a usual string gauge between 50 and 110. Since winter 2010, he's been using DR's Black Beauties. The thickest E string goes up to 110. But the next size up would be 120, which is the same gauge as a B string on a 5-string bass. Geezer has said in an interview at Bass Player magazine that DR are now sending him custom 115 strings. These suit him just fine for C tuning on a 4-string bass. To wrap this segment up, let's talk pickups. Geez has been a fan of EMG for many years, sporting their vintage set in his BC Riches and again with his Lakelands today. In 2014, Geezer had his very own signature pickup made for precision and precision jazz basses. Designed in a vintage style but built with a few modern touches. The P set uses an Alnico 5 pole piece with custom wound coils. The J style pickup in a PJ set has 2 wound split coils that eliminate the noise and hum usually associated with early 70s bass pickups, allowing for more power and output than any other standard single coil J pickup. And with that, if you like the video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe for more. I really appreciate that and it helps the channel to grow. We now have a bunch of new subscribers since the last video and I'd like to thank you all for joining me. Hey, how you doing? Leave a comment or tweet me and tell me what you've enjoyed so far. Or better yet, if there's a bass rig that you want to see next, you tell me in the comments down below. This concludes the first season of Know Your Bass Player, and as I alluded to earlier, there will be an update video soon to follow with plenty of news about season 2. So keep an eye out for that. Thank you very much for joining me, and I'll see you in season 2.